Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities team, and I'm super excited to be here with you for this free program called Technology versus True Power. Tap into your innate ability to accomplish almost anything and change the world. This is an online program with best-selling author Gregg Braden. It's a 90-minute program with a 30-minute live Q&A at the end. So make sure to make note of any questions that you have. I'll be coming in live to answer your questions at the end of this program. This program is part of a free online video series with Gregg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and Lynn McTaggart called Discover Why You Don't Need Technology to Take a Giant Leap Forward in Human Development. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a really powerful program in store for you. As we get started, I'm going to give Gregg a proper introduction. Gregg Braden is a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, researcher, educator, lecturer, and internationally renowned as a pioneer bridging modern science, spirituality, and human potential. His research has led to 15 film credits and 12 award-winning books now published in over 40 languages. The United Kingdom's Watkins Journal lists Gregg among the top 100 of the world's most spiritually influential living people for the 6th consecutive year, and he is a 2020 nominee for the prestigious Templeton Award, established to honor outstanding individuals who have devoted their talents to expanding our vision of human purpose and ultimate reality. And welcome to the program, Gregg.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. It's so good to be here. It's really good to see you. I love listening to that introduction, especially the part about me being living. See, that living criteria, that makes all the difference in the world. So I just want to thank you and Humanities team for allowing us, Bruce Lipton, my dear friend and colleague for over 30 years, and Lynn McTaggart, the three of us, for the opportunity to share this particular body of information that's never been shared before in the way that we're going to do. So I just want to say that right off the bat. Thank you all for your vision and your dedication, your perseverance for making this possible.
Yeah, thank you, Gregg. Well, we're going to unfold this whole thing, what you just described, the first time the three of you have come together in this format to offer something like it. So let's go ahead and just unfold this program. It's very exciting. So before we go into the program with Gregg, though, I want to share that near the end of this program, we're going to let you know about a brand new 8-week masterclass that we've been working on for over a year. Is called Technology, Consciousness, and Evolution. Discover how to unleash your ultimate potential. And it is with Gregg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and Lynn McTaggart. The three of them are faculty for the program. This is the first time they've come together in this format to offer a masterclass, so be sure and stay tuned. Now, let's jump in with Gregg to get to these important topics that we planned for you during the hour. Gregg, as we get started, just to kind of go back in time a little bit, we conceived this program together about a year ago, and we said that it was going to be about the role of technology that is blurring the line between human and machine, and that this is happening in ways that people are not even aware of. You shared that transhuman, this term transhuman, is one of the terms that's surfacing to describe this, and you also shared that it's critical that people understand who we are before we give ourselves away. That's your quote. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, thank you, Steve. And I think this is perhaps one of the most critical bodies of information that we could share at this time in history. And it is also one of the least discussed. There's a battle, Steve, that's unfolding in our lives and in our world. It's a battle that's seldom talked about in mainstream media, but it's playing out through technology and society in a way that is so obvious, many people are not even recognizing. You know, it's often said the best way to hide something is to keep it in plain sight. And the battle that's playing out between technology and our humanness is happening precisely that way. New technology is being developed that mimics, and in some cases is designed to replace natural biological functions that we have, and it is being embraced very, very quickly in some societies, even faster than others. And the danger of this, Steve, is that these devices, the chips, the wires implanted into the brain, implanted into other parts of the body, what the evidence suggests is that when we begin to embrace the technology, that our natural abilities begin to atrophy. The biology begins to atrophy. And I want to be very clear with you and with our viewers where I am on this. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, good, or bad. What I'm saying is it's happening so quickly that we risk compromising and losing unique qualities that make us human before we even know what those qualities are, before we even know fully what it means to be human. Now, for a lot of people, they say, well, what do you mean? We've got the biology down, really well. In some respects, we do. But, new discoveries, some of them are less than a year old, Steve. We are still discovering classes of neurons in the human brain that we never knew existed. For example, in 2018, a neuron was discovered that surprised the medical scientists. They were doing experiments with pharmaceuticals in test animals that very closely resemble the biology of humans. And if the thinking is, if they work in the test animals, that they will work in humans. They were working in the animals, they didn't work in the humans. And the question is, what made us so very different? And it led to new scans of the human brain that reveal a new class of neurons unique to humans that actually regulate consciousness. These are the neurons that allow us to regulate the state of awareness and the consciousness, the states of consciousness that we access. They were just found, and it was announced in a very prestigious journal, Nature, August of 2018. So these neurons, I mean, this is just one example. We're still discovering what we are and what it means to be human. And the purpose of this program, of us putting this together, and Bruce and Lynn and I all feel the same way about this, is let's find out this extraordinary potential that lives within each of us. Let's find out what that potential is and how we can apply it in our lives to become the best versions of ourselves and create the best families, the strongest societies, ultimately, Steve, the best world possible. And I think this would be important at any time in our lives. But I think it's beyond important. I think it is vital. It's critical now because the world is changing so fast, and we've got to change the way we think, the way we solve our problems, the way we live to meet the challenges that life has brought to our doorstep in this changing world. And it's difficult to do that if we are stuck in the thinking that led to the problems. And a lot of that thinking has to do with human biology being limited, with us being powerless victims of our circumstance, of our lives. So the discoveries that we'll share, they apply not only at a personal level, but ultimately on the level of society and beyond. The better we know ourselves, the better equipped we are to deal with whatever life does bring to our doorstep. And the better we know ourselves, I think what we're going to find, Steve, is the less we feel the need for the external technology. Because this is the key, and I'm going to say this again and again, we are the technology. We are the technology. We are a technologically advanced, highly sophisticated, soft technology, not wires and chips, but we're talking about membranes and fluids and the ability to self-regulate all of the energy that runs through the soft biology in our prayers, in our affirmations, thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs in everyday life. So it's a long answer to a short question. This is why I think this is such a vital program because it's about us at the most intimate level we could imagine, Steve, at the very core of our being and our relationship to our existence.
Yeah, boy, as you mentioned, it's such an important topic. So let's just dive in and go deeper. Yeah. I'm just really grateful that we're offering this program to the world at this time, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions here. So let's go deeper into this whole who we are part, and just maybe start with, can you share how to access these new pathways to healing and creating optimal states of physical and emotional health?
Sure. The thinking in conventional biology is that we are the product of random processes, Steve. We are the product of random mutations over long periods of time, as Darwin suggested in his book, Origin of Species in 1859. that life in general and humans specifically are the product of these random processes. Here's the key. One of the corollaries to Darwin's thinking from one of the people that worked with him to develop the theory, his name was Alfred Wallace. And what Alfred Wallace said, there was a corollary to Darwin's theory of evolution that said nature never overendows. That's his exact words. And what that means is that a form of life, any form of life, will only have and bring into existence the capabilities that are needed for it to survive in its environment in that moment in time. So, for example, studies have shown the moths in England, for example, during the industrial period, when the sky was thick with soot, the moths would stand out because they were lighter color and they were easy prey for the birds. So they very quickly adapted a darker color to their wings so that they would blend in with the soot that was on the walls and the buildings and things like that. That's a perfect example. Here's where this is a problem for we humans, is we appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago, and scientists agree with that. The controversy is how we got here. We appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago, fully intact, fully enabled, with a brain 50% larger than any other our nearest primate relatives, an extended neural network that we're going to talk about in this program that allows us to self-regulate our own biology. And if you compare our DNA now to the DNA that's extracted from ancient fossils representing those forms of life, we haven't changed. That is not Darwin's idea of evolution. We arrived with everything we need light years beyond what was needed to survive in that moment. It was already with us. So we are now at this point in our evolutionary process. Evolution is a fact. I want to be very clear. As a geologist, I'm a degree geologist. Evolution is a fact. I've seen it in the fossil record for many forms of life. It breaks down at that 200,000 year point for humans. Something else happened that imbued us with these extraordinary abilities that no other form of life is known to have at this point in time. And the key, this is again a long answer to your very brief question, the key that is going to open the door to this entire course is, and I'm going to speak directly to our viewers, Steve. I'm going to say, viewers, you are the only form of life that is known to exist with the ability to consciously sit down in a moment in time and self-regulate the biology of your being. And here's what I mean by that. The only form of life that can consciously choose a moment in time where you awaken the enzymes for longevity in your body, where you strengthen your immune response because you choose to. And boy, if we ever needed a stronger immune response, I can't think of a better time than right now with all of the things that are happening in the world. We're the only form of life that can access deep states of intuition when we choose on demand, create resilience to life's change on demand, and so much more. No other form of life can do this, but it goes beyond that. Steve, we've got about 50 trillion cells in the human body, every cell about 0.07 volts of electrical potential. We're the only form of life that can harness that electrical potential in our bodies and direct it to our own personal healing, to our, our own intuition, and the way that we function in everyday life so that we are optimized on demand. And Bruce and Lynn and myself, we're going to share, first of all, the discoveries so that the left brain can embrace these extraordinary potentials. Once you see the peer-reviewed science, rock-solid science, you say, my God, I didn't know that. How do I apply it in my life? And then that opens the door to the right brain and the heart so we can go in and access the techniques and the potentials. So again, long answer to a short question, but it's all very different from the way we've been taught to think about ourselves. And I believe that's why we are pushing the external technology, because we believe we are lacking in abilities that we've actually had from the very beginning.
Yeah, fascinating. Opening the right brain and the heart. Wow, you know, it's a lot to that. So we're going to just keep unfolding this conversation. So Gregg, can you recommend simple techniques that allow you to achieve advanced brain states that are key to unlocking your superhuman potentials?
One of the technologies, Steve, that is being introduced And again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm not saying it's right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm saying it's a slippery slope. It is the development of a chip, a physical chip to be implanted into the tissue of the human brain that actually takes the neurons and connects the neurons with the chip. And with that chip gives the user the ability to interact with their hard drive on their computer with no wires or cables. It's a Bluetooth-like technology. Without any, so what we're talking about is a direct link from human neurons into the hard drive. And the reason I think that this is such a slippery slope is because it was only in 2004 scientists discovered a class of neurons that allow us to learn very quickly. And that's what these chips are being designed to do. So we can learn very quickly from information on our computer's hard drive. If we want to learn a language, or if we want to learn mathematics or something like that. The chips are being designed to allow us to access that information directly. Well, we have what are called mirror neurons, or technically cubelli neurons, that allow us, if we know how to access them, if we know how to implement them in our lives. These neurons don't know the difference between having an experience and watching someone else have the experience, or picking up information externally. So what this means, Steve, is that, for example, if the brain doesn't know the difference between having an experience and watching someone else have the experience, think about the potential for healing. If we can feed those mirror neurons images of our own healing, what happens is, because the brain doesn't know the difference, it begins to create the chemistry and sends the signals to the body, and it says, hey, body, we better create the chemistry to match this image of healing that we're now receiving. And this is one of the potentials that you're talking about. And we don't want to risk losing this kind of biology by giving our power away to the external technology. And we begin to implant artificial chips into the brain that do things for us. It's the use it or lose it principle. Our natural biology begins to atrophy because we're not using it. We're not using those neural connections. If we don't use them, they do begin to atrophy. So this is just one example. I'm actually answering two questions. I'm answering your question. One of the ways that we can access the technology is through the cubelli, or the mirror neurons. And all this is described in the program in more detail, of course. But secondly, a beautiful example of the potential for external technology to be embraced quickly without fully knowing the extent of our own ability, and losing our ability once that technology is there. It's, it's kind of like, I think most of our viewers here probably remember a time when we didn't have mobile phones. Everything was done on landline, or payphone in an airport or something like that. They're pretty rare to see these days. And when the mobile phones were introduced, it was a choice as to whether or not they were used. Some people had them, some people didn't. And now we have an entire generation of young people that does not know life without those mobile phones, and depends on those phones for more than saying hello to someone. Depends on them for, it is social connection. Is also the apps on the phone are used in schoolwork. They're used in health. They're used in food preparation. Everything is done on these phones. So what was a choice in one generation became a necessity in the way things are doing only one generation later. When we talk about replacing neurons with chips, we're looking at the same possibility. What may be a choice in one generation becomes the way things are done in the next generation. And pretty soon, 2 or 3 generations down the road, no one even knows what the mirror neurons are. We begin to lose those potentials. So there are places where this technology can be very, very good, Steve. This is one of those places. I am a scientist. As I mentioned, I'm a degree geologist, and I've heard this from my scientific colleagues. We're at this point, Steve. It's a really delicate, very critical crossroad where technology is pushing morality. Just because we have the technology doesn't mean that we should use it. The technology is developing faster than our understanding of how it's applied. So there are two schools of thought. Some scientists say because we have it, we're meant to use it. Other scientists say, well, not so fast. Just because we developed it, we have the ability to determine when it's appropriate to use this technology. So maybe the chips aren't good for recreation. I'm not recommending recreational chips in the brain. However, if you or a loved one has served on the battlefield of Afghanistan or Iraq and lost access to a limb or multiple limbs, and with a prosthetic and a chip, you now have the ability to hold your baby in your arms one more time, or to brush your own teeth, or wash your own hair, or take a shower, or care for yourself, or play an instrument that you had mastered before your accident. I mean, what a beautiful blessing. So I believe there's a place for the technology, and it's up to us. We're at the place, this critical crossroad. We must determine where we go with that technology, because once we go down the path of replacing human biology with artificial chips, wires, and devices, we aren't going to go back. And we need to make that choice right now.
Yeah, boy. So, which is why this program is so important, because in many respects, I think technology's been put on the altar, so to speak, and we really need to be looking more critically at this technology and human consciousness, human capacity. So, which is what our program is about here. So
Steve, both you and I, Steve, come from a background in corporations of technology. So we've seen in our lifetimes, we've seen the evolution of technology, and from very early stages in our respective careers. So we have that perspective of having been on the inside and on the ground level to see a lot of this developing.
Yeah, so true. We were in Silicon Valley at the same time there in the 90s, and I think even in the late 80s.
Yeah.
There, and so true. So now this frontier of consciousness it's the age of consciousness. So which again is why this is so important. We don't want to just go give our power away to technology. We want to understand our superhuman capacities, which is what this program is about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go drill down a little deeper here, Gregg, and ask you this next question. So how can we experience deep states of personal and non-local intuition at will?
That's a really good question, Steve. And the more the discoveries are revealed in the peer-reviewed science, the deeper the mysteries become. It's interesting because the thinking is, once science makes a discovery, they say, okay, we're going to solve this mystery. Well, they may answer a question, but it opens the door to deeper mysteries. So here's what's happening in answer to that question. The discoveries are being made and they're being viewed independent from one another. So there's a discovery of Q-belly neurons, 2004, 2018. The neurons I spoke about earlier, by the way, are called rose hip neurons because they look like a rose hip berry that you would see growing in your garden. And so these are viewed as separate and disparate discoveries. What we are seeing now in Bruce and Lynn and myself, through our different perspectives, I've spent a lot of time with indigenous people who apply these discoveries without knowing the science, Steve. So what's happening is they understand our relationship to our bodies in the world. They don't know the nuts and bolts of the science, but they sure know how to apply it. And that's what I'm talking about in my programs. So one of the things they've discovered, I'm going to share a couple of discoveries here. 1991, scientists discovered 40,000 specialized cells in the human heart called sensory neurons. They're brain-like cells, except they're not in the brain, they're in the heart. They think, feel, remember, and sense independently of the human brain. When we combine that discovery with the Q-belly neurons, when we combine that discovery with the ability that we have to harmonize, to literally tune the heart and the brain together. And think about this, what we're talking about, these are two separate organs, both of them have neurons. And we are the only form of life I'm aware of right now that has the ability, self-regulation of the biology, to consciously harmonize two organs into one potent system in the body. It's called heart-brain harmony, heart-brain coherence. We mentioned this in previous programs when I was presenting with HeartMath. So this is the beginning of a technology When we are able to harmonize the heart and the brain together, what we are doing is we're optimizing our entire system. We're saying all systems are ready to go. Now, what do you put into that optimized system? This is where the cubelli neurons come in. When you put those cubelli neurons in the presence of coherence and you apply that to prayer or to affirmations, now you are speaking to your body and even the field beyond your body in a language that your body and the field recognize. It's more than a verbal communication. It's literally speaking in the language that we recognize. So it is these kinds of self-regulatory actions that optimize us in our environment and allow us to create greater resilience to the changes in our lives, for example, because when we change the biology and we change the physiology, we begin to change the way we respond to the world around us. So for example, harmonizing the heart and the brain is one way. The greater the heart-brain coherence, the greater degree of what's called heart rate variability, HRV. Every moment of every day, our heart, you know, it goes, when our heart beats, it goes boom, 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 boom. It's called the QRS complex. Q and the R is the spike and the S is what happens afterwards. The time from one peak to the next, the one R wave to the next, varies with every heartbeat. The greater the variation, the more resilience we have to life and to the changes, to loss, to new ways of learning, to new ways of thinking. And when we're young, we have tremendous heart rate variability, typically, maybe not for our viewers because this is a very well informed audience, but typically as we age, we lose that heart rate variability. The beauty of what we're discovering now, what these discoveries are showing, is you can regain that heart rate variability at any time in your life through the techniques that we're talking about now. And the heart-brain coherence is one of those techniques. So we are the only form of life that can consciously, we've all heard of neuroplasticity, and that's the ability to change the way neurons are wiring and firing together. What these technologies are showing, Steve, is it goes beyond neuroplasticity. We're now talking about bioplasticity, the ability to change our biology. We're talking about genetic plasticity, the ability to literally upregulate or downregulate genes in our bodies, and do so through the epigenetics that Bruce Lipton will talk about. And they are choices that we make in our lives. The key is to become aware of the choices and which ones serve us and which ones may not serve us in the way that we'd like.
Oh, yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating. Thank you, Gregg. So I'm gonna now point another question at you. So how do you trigger longevity enzymes inside your body that are directly linked to biological markers for aging?
Well, that's a beautiful question, Steve. You know, there's a new philosophy emerging, a new thinking regarding aging. We have been taught that aging is a linear process, that you come into this world with X amount of life and life force, and every day you use a little bit of it up, linear aging, until the tank is empty, and then it's over. That is the way we're conditioned to think. So from that thinking, as we age in chronological time, as we're a year older, a year from now than we are now, we also age in biological time. The new discoveries are now leading to a new philosophy that is called cyclic aging. What cyclic aging is, says you come into this world, X amount of life and life force, we never know how much, and rather than using it up and depleting it a little bit each day, what we have are the opportunities to replenish that life force, to fill the tank every day through choices that we make. And a lot of those choices, I know that people are very aware of, things like nutrition and diet and exercise and movement and breath. It's all about the environment. But one of the keys the studies are showing is that it's not just about the external environment. The inner environment plays perhaps the strongest role in that inner environment is made of what we call thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs. So when we choose the way that we think and feel about our lives and our world, we are sending the signals through our choice. We're sending the signals to our heart. Do we feel a sense of well-being and safety, or are we frustrated? Are we angry? Our heart, based upon our perceptions, is sending the signals to the brain of either the sense of well-being or a sense of anger or frustration. And the brain is releasing the chemistry into the body that matches those things, either stress chemistry or rejuvenation chemistry. When we can create that sense, heart-brain harmony, 0.1 hertz is literally the frequency that optimizes the coherence between the heart and the brain, and we can feel the feelings that create that coherence. What we're doing is we're relieving the stress in the body. And in the absence of that stress, we have enzymes, a very precise enzyme near the end of each of our chromosomes that literally has three functions. The purpose of this enzyme is to stop the deterioration of the telomeres at the end of the chromosome, number one. Number two, the purpose is to repair whatever damage has occurred. Number three is where it gets really, really juicy, because number three is to rebuild those telomeres even to the point where we can reverse the biological markers of aging, although we go forward in chronological time. So what this means is by following our most ancient and cherished spiritual principles of living in the heart, but using the science to tell us how to precisely hone and tune what that means to be heart-centered between the heart and the brain, we'll always move forward in chronological time. I don't think we care about that. The key is, do we deteriorate in that time? And we now have the ability to reverse that and actually become younger biologically, even though chronologically we live another hour or another year or another 5 or 10 years on Earth. It's a very, very different way of thinking, but and it's very exciting, very exciting. It's all based in rock solid science. Steve, we now know that every organ in the human body has the ability to heal and repair the damage it sustained, even the organs we were told could not. Spinal cord tissue, pancreatic tissue, heart tissue, brain tissue, if the cells are given the right environment. And excuse me, in that environment, some of it is the external environment, and we're all very familiar with that. But where the really potent potential appears to be is our internal environment, that we have, we are the masters of our internal environment. And as we demonstrate our mastery, we reap the benefits through bioplasticity and genetic plasticity.
This science is just so fascinating. Greg, thank you. Thanks for taking us through that. Fascinating. I'll share this again, but we're going to be sending out a link today to a program page and tomorrow morning to the webinar itself, so that you can come back and just sponge up the wisdom. You might want to listen to the program again and again just to catch all of the key points that Greg's making here. So, so Greg, you share about our ability to access hidden states of super consciousness, super learning,
Right.
and super perception. Can you discuss this and share what it reveals about what lies ahead for us in the future?
Well, I'm going to condense this into just a few brief concepts. I think most of us are familiar with the idea that the brain is a polarity organ. We hear about the left brain and the right brain, and we hear about intuition and feeling as opposed to logic and kind of a mechanistic view of the world. When we try to solve our problems, Steve, as many of us have been conditioned to do through the brain, excuse me, what happens is our brain and our personality will often keep us in a loop, a dialogue between the left and the right brain that actually prevents us from accessing the solution that we have at our fingertips. So when we try to solve a relationship problem, should I stay or should I go? There's actually a song in there. Or when we try to solve a problem about a work or a job, should I leave this company or should I stay? Should I move to a new location? What's the purpose of my life? You know, what should I be doing? Should I have children or should I not have children? You know, big questions of life. If you ask your brain will keep you stuck in those logic loops, because the brain always works in right or wrong, good or bad, success or failure, worthy or not worthy. And it's very difficult to arrive at a healthy objective solution in the brain. The heart, which also has the neurons, is not a polarity organ, and it does not think in that way. So when we can begin to literally to shift our awareness, and there is a science and there is an art to shifting the awareness from the brain into the heart, because the heart is not working in those polarity loops. The heart will answer very quickly and very concisely and very objectively, and this is where we find our power and our mastery and our deepest states of intuition. So it is a conscious shift. So it's up to us. There are sometimes we want to use the brain. You know, if you're building a space shuttle to take living humans to, you know, into space, you want to be very, excuse me, very methodical, step by step. You want that left brain. But when you're talking about the healing of the human body, sometimes the intuition will lead you right to the source, and the heart knows where that source is. So these are all tools, Steve, and what we're doing is we're expanding the toolbox of what it means to be human in ways that we're only beginning to understand, and we're doing it at just the moment when technology is being presented that holds the potential of forever compromising this extraordinary potential that we have. And I think once we begin to really embrace what it means to be human, the fullest extent of what it means to be human, what we'll recognize is we do not need a lot of that external technology, and our lives actually become much simpler.
Yes, they do, and so important. It's all about, you know, just seeing this vision for where consciousness fits, and with our human capacities, and where technology fits, and that's what we're discussing here. This, which is so important at this time in humankind's evolution, so important. So thank you for setting the stage here, Gregg. And again, let me just mention again. So there's a link going out here as you're watching the program to a program page, which we'll reveal in just a moment. And then in the morning, there's a link going out to the full webinar, so you can watch this program again and again, and sponge up all the important wisdom that Gregg's been sharing. So thank you again, Gregg. Now we're going to now segue over to this program that we shared, that we've been also working on for over a year. It's a collaboration actually between Gregg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Lynn McTaggart, and Humanities team, and it's resulting in a brand new 8-week masterclass, which I'll show you here on screen in a second. But let me share this before I share screen and we start reviewing the program page. Some of the cutting edge research that's looking at education reveals that the most powerful way that we can learn is by being together with some of the most some of the leading thought leaders in the world, ideally 2 or 3, and where we could just sit down physically with 2 or 3 thought leaders and spend a couple, 3 or 4 hours. They say that this is actually how we can sponge up the most information and really learn. Now, most of us aren't going to have that possibility to sit down physically with 2 or 3 of the world-renowned thought leaders, but we've created that virtually here. That's this whole approach that Humanities team has taken with masterclasses, which is new and different, where we've gone out in this case for a topic such as technology, consciousness, and evolution, and sought out the world-renowned thought leaders in this case, Gregg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and Lynn McTaggart. So let me now just share screen here, and Here it is. Hooray. All right. Wow. I hope you're as excited as we are. So technology, consciousness, and evolution, discover how to unleash your ultimate potential. And with these world-renowned thought leaders, Gregg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Lynn McTaggart. Gregg, do you want to just come in here with just a few thoughts about this collaboration that we've been working on for so long together?
Thank you, Steve, for the opportunity to talk about this. You know, to do a course like this, there has to be synergy among the presenters. And what was so interesting for me is that this is not a Gregg Braden only course. It's not a solo course, but it is Gregg Braden collaborating with two of the other, in my opinion, most brilliant minds, most beautiful hearts, but also pioneers in their respective fields to bring these understandings to bear. So each of us from our unique perspectives, Lynn working with the field that connects all things and that we are part of, and Bruce giving us the details of the epigenetics, and I'm sharing the science and the technology, and there's a place where all of this overlaps. I talk about the field, Bruce talks about the field, Lynn talks about epigenetics and technology. So there is a beautiful synergy that I'm honored to share with these dear friends in a unique way. And it gave us the opportunity, Steve, to do something we have never done before. You know, we have these conversations over tea in between sessions at a conference. This gave us the opportunity to formalize and really develop the ideas that have emerged informally, you know, passing in the hall, you know, as we're about to go on stage at a conference in London or, you know, somewhere in another country. We all work together quite a bit in London, is why I said that. So that's why I'm especially excited, and I know my colleagues are as well. So I just wanted to say that as we launch into these modules.
Yes. So, and Gregg, let me throw this at you too. As you recall, back when we had the conversation a year ago, and we were visioning this program that would be talking about just the upper realm of technology, and then human consciousness and its higher capacities that we can embody. And we were talking about, well, who would, if we were going to seek out three world-renowned scientists, experts, researchers, who would those three people be? And Bruce Lipton and Lynn McTaggart surfaced as these others that would be in the program. So do you want to talk a little bit about just the magic in putting these three thought leaders together in this 24 module, 3 mentoring, 8-week masterclass?
Well, I cannot speak for the other presenters, but I'll speak from my perspective of the other presenters. And once again, we first of all, we deeply care about one another. We love one another. And I think that is important if people are going to work together intimately to share deep concepts, new ideas, to do it responsibly, to do it professionally. And this is something, a standard that Bruce and Lynn and I all share. Our desire is to honor you, to honor our audience, whether it's one person in one room or whether it's 5,000 people in a big room. It's about honoring you and your relationship to your body and to your world and our world that's changing, and giving you the information that leads to the best tools that you can develop in your personal life, again, to help you to become the best version of yourself, for your kids, for your family, for your job, just for your own peace of mind and well-being. But the beauty of this is, as we become the best versions of ourselves, we create stronger families, we create stronger communities, we create a stronger, healthier society. And I think we all know that the world is changing so quickly. We haven't been given a good template for where that change is leading. So it's causing a lot of fear and a lot of chaos. What we all have found, each of us, Bruce, Lynn, myself, is the better we know ourselves, the less fear we have about those changes. We cannot know. There are things that are unknown right now and cannot be known where the world is leading and precisely how things are turning out. But if we have a rock solid anchor, if we have this emotional foundation of our sense of self, then the changes around us take on much less of a significance, because we are not at the whim of the winds of change to the degree that we would be otherwise. So we live our lives, we heal our bodies, we choose our relationships, we make our political choices, our policy choices, our legal choices based on the way we think about ourselves. So this is designed to give you, our viewer, new ways to think about yourself that are reflected in the changes in the world that we're seeing now. New, healthy, empowering ways to think about yourself.
And such a important and cutting edge topic here. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and scroll this program page, invite you to come back and review it, because we're going to just really look at the surface here of what is being offered. There is so much in this program. So invite you to come back and spend quality time with it. It is 24 video modules. It's an 8-week program, so that's 3 video modules a week. There are science-based bonuses. We're going to go take a look at those here in a moment. And there are 3 live mentoring sessions. So a live mentoring session with Gregg, a live mentoring session with Bruce Lipton, and a live mentoring session with Lynn McTaggart. I'm going to share right up front, it's $297. So really an amazing, a year-long collaboration. It's brand new. It's a masterclass that we're actually just for the very first time revealing here today. So excited to have you with us. I'm not going to try and read this page. This is why I invite you to come back and spend some time reading it, because there's so much here. This is why it took a year to really flesh out what are these leading edge technologies. Gregg brought in, a chip that is placed on a brain, even robotic partners, robotic children, something called a solidarity, which is where we put our human heart and our human brain inside robotics to become immortal, as the technology solution. So that's explored, but then these superhuman capacities are discussed in depth, because ultimately what this is about in this age of consciousness is, as Gregg is explaining with the science as a foundation, is understanding who we are, where we're bringing in this ancient wisdom and this science and this research that share that we have unbelievable superhuman capacities. So that's all of what is folded into this program. It's amazing. There's nothing like it, right, Gregg? When we first started talking about this a year ago, we said let's kind of hold this tight, because we want to, when we unveil it, it's something new. There's really not anything quite like this out in the marketplace, and it's so important.
Well, Steve, I'm excited. This is obviously unrehearsed. We've never done this. I'm excited for what you're about to do right now. This is the first time I will have seen each of these modules in this brochure. And do we get a chance to talk about each module a little bit?
We do, yeah. Let's
Okay,
scroll
cool,
down.
cool.
And again, I'm going slow just so I want to invite you to come back to the program page and really experience it fully. Let's come into these 24 modules. So, and this again is in what the latest research in education says is to spend time thoughtfully creating video modules that are consumable. So, not more than 20 minutes each, so that we can really sponge up the important information. It isn't a fire hose where it's exciting and inspiring, but we lose, 3/4 or 4/5 of it. So instead, wow, it's all placed inside of these modules that are 20 minutes or less. And Gregg is teaching the first 8 modules. And Gregg, I'm just going to invite you to share here about your modules.
Do you want me just to go through them as I'm seeing them on the screen here?
Yeah, if you don't mind, just a brief little skip.
Sure. Well, the first module is what we began this conversation with, that there is, in fact, there are multiple battles that are unfolding. And I think most people are aware there's a battle for our thoughts. We're being taught what to think through the mainstream media. And when it comes to us, our relationship to the world, there's a battle for our beliefs. what do we believe about the way the world began? What do we believe about the way human origins began? And that battle is playing out in the classroom. It's playing out in the textbooks. It's playing out in mainstream media. But they all pale, Steve, from my perspective, they pale in comparison to the ultimate battle that is playing out, and that's the battle for our very humanness. In Module 1, I'm attempting to share with our viewer how this battle is playing out so that we can become aware of it, and it becomes the foundation for every other module that we're doing. So that's the first module. The second module, blurring the line between human and machine. There is this movement, and it's interesting because the technology now is advancing so quickly, and it's being embraced in ways that some scientists agree with and some don't. For example, we now have a technology to edit human DNA and genes just the way you would edit a paragraph in a word processor on the computer. You literally can go in and cut and paste the genes to customize the embryo in the body of a living woman. From my perspective, that also can be a very slippery slope, because by whose standard do we determine what is good and what is not good in an embryo? But also it can be good if we know that there is a defect that could lead to the loss of the life of the baby or maybe the mother, and if it could be repaired quickly. So it's one of those places where the technology isn't good, bad, right, or wrong. The morality is catching up with it. But the technology is also being embraced, replacing so many functions of the human body that we now are, in fact, blurring the line between what it means to be human and what it means to be machine. And that leads to that third module. There is a movement that is called transhumanism, just what it says. There are different stages. There is a stage of transhumanism where we augment the human body with maybe contact lenses that allow us to interface with a device, or a chip that allows us to interface with a device. The second level is where the body is essentially an artificial body powered by a human brain and human consciousness. And the third, Steve, is something that you mentioned earlier. There are scientists that believe that consciousness is little more than electrical impulses, and for that reason can be uploaded and stored on a chip and downloaded into another form of life, or after we leave this body into another body for immortality. So this is where this movement of technology is moving. The question is, how far do we take it? How much of ourselves do we give away to the technology? How much of our humanness do we compromise? That is what the purpose of that module 3 is all about. Number 4 helps us to understand why that module 3 is so important. And we've mentioned this here in this program as well. We're not what we've been told. We are not the product of random mutations, lucky biology that happens slowly, gradually over a long period of time. And perhaps most importantly, we're not the product of successful competition in nature. This was one of Darwin's primary tenets, was that we are successful because competition has led us to be successful. That thinking was introduced into the world in the late 1800s when our society was being formed, and it is a foundation of the economic system, the corporate system, and the way we solve so many problems today. And it's based upon a false assumption. Nature's based upon cooperation. And as we embrace that truth and apply it into our lives, the way we live and the way we solve our problems begins to change immediately. So in this module, I'm showing you're not what you've been told. You're not the product of random mutations. And probably, very probably, you viewer, whoever's watching this right now, any of you watching, you're more than you've ever even allowed yourself to imagine. We tend to hold back when it comes to our potential. Sometimes we feel guilty about the power that we have within us, and that's identified in this module. Module number 5 was the discovery that blew this open for scientists, the Human Genome Project. Prior to the Human Genome Project that was announced in the year 2002, the completion was announced in 2002, it was believed that there are about 100,000 proteins in the human body, that's correct, give or take, and it was believed that there's one gene that programs every protein, The problem is that after this project was completed, scientists discovered there are only 25,000 genes in the human body. And that meant that there's not one gene for every protein. What it told us is that one gene can be regulated to produce multiple proteins. This is called epigenetics. And this is where we find our power, because we are the programmers of the epigenetics through the choices that we make in our inner and outer environment. That's what this module is all about. Number 6 goes even further, and I alluded to this as well. 50 trillion plus cells in the human body, Steve, and every cell has electrical potential, 0.07 volts of electrical potential. Every cell is a capacitor, every cell is a resistor, every cell transmits information, it receives information, it stores information. And if that sounds familiar to any of us, it's because our outer world, all of the technology in our outer world does precisely these things. And there is an emerging philosophy, Steve, it's fascinating to me, that consciousness informs itself through its creations. And I elaborate on that in this module. But what it's saying is that all of the devices that we're building outside of our bodies are mirroring and mimicking something that we already have within. And when we remember that and embrace our inner technology, what I'm calling soft technology, then we can let the complex clutter of the outer world go. Our world becomes much simpler, but we become more sophisticated because we are embodying the deepest truths of what it means to be human. It's a very, very powerful module. Module number 7 then describes the discoveries, the science-based discoveries in places like the CERN, the superconducting super collider, the largest, most complex device ever built by humankind that straddles the border between Switzerland and France, recreating the first few fractions of a second after the beginning of the universe to determine what were the laws that were set into motion, the laws of physics that we live today. They were set into motion in those first few fractions of a second. So this module describes the discoveries, new discoveries. Some are just a year or two old. Science is validated, the field is out there, but here's the thing, the field isn't out there only, the field is here. We are the field. Every atom in our body is emerging and collapsing into the field. And that means that we are deeply connected to this field. And that changes the way we think about ourselves and our relationship to the world. That leads to the last module. And for me, Steve, it was very healing to be able to formalize and write this. And I'll be very honest, my time, I had so much to say, I went a little bit over my 15 or 20 minutes of my modules. So I hope people aren't disappointed, but I wanted to round out these ideas. If the technology around us is mirroring the technology that we are, that we live, then the principles of that technology apply in our bodies as well. When we think about computers, the way a computer is programmed, 3 steps to program any computer, no matter how big or how small. There's the opening of the declaration statements, there are the words that create the work, and there's the closure. If the computers are mimicking the way that we function, then the computers are telling us how to communicate with consciousness very effectively, how to communicate through deep prayer, through deep affirmation. And this module identifies that, and actually every module has the experiential component, I will say that. Each of my modules has an experiential component. This one is a technique as well as an experience of creating our own prayer based upon the template that of our relationship to consciousness that the previous modules have helped us to understand. So in a nutshell, that is my contribution, these 8 modules, and my goal, again, this isn't a Gregg Braden solo program, my goal was to lay the foundation for everything that Bruce and Lynn will do, so that when Lynn begins talking about the field, you will know exactly what that field is, because we talked about the discoveries from CERN. When Bruce begins talking about the epigenetics, you're going to understand exactly how that relates to heart-brain coherence and what it means to the genes in the field. And in that way, my goal was to create a very integrated, deep sharing rather than me being one of three separate and distinct programs. So I hope that makes sense, Steve. That was, in a nutshell, it was a lot to say, but in a nutshell, that encapsulates those first eight modules.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Gregg. And as you mentioned, there's just incredible synergy here because there's cutting edge science, cutting edge research, cutting edge wisdom that's revealed throughout this whole program. We're really out putting under the microscope an incredibly important topic, technology and consciousness and human capacity. So let me, I'm going to just scroll this quickly because I'm going to invite you to come back, viewers, to spend quality time here. Bruce Lipton modules go next: the evolution of evolution, the culturalization of evolutionary theory, knowledge is power, dispelling the myth of genes, the secret of life, epigenetics, the power of mind over genes, the cell membrane and organic information processor, conscious evolution and evolutionary theory we can thrive with. And then Lynn McTaggart's 8 modules follow: there's no such thing as a thing. We are energy systems, mutable matter. Thoughts are things that affect other things. Powers beyond space and time. The healing power of community. Thoughts magnified, the intention experiment, and the power of 8. So those are the 24 modules. Then interspersed throughout this program are these 3 live mentoring programs with first Gregg Braden for an hour, then Bruce Lipton for an hour, and then Lynn McTaggart for an hour, where you come in and you're on camera. They can see you, you can see them, to ask questions and bring in comments regarding the 24 modules. Now, there's lots more to the program. There's always, community is an important element. So there's a private Facebook community where you can share with others the experience that you're having going through the program. And for people traveling, we all travel as part of our professional work, or many of us do. There are PDFs, so you can actually read all of the 24 modules, and then there are the MP3 audios where you can listen to all of the 24 modules when you're traveling. Bonuses are a big part of this program. A lot of people enjoy the bonuses because they create a foundation for the program coming in. There are 3 bonus categories. In the first bonus category, there's this Resilience from the Heart. That's an audio seminar with Gregg Braden. Then the Biology of Belief. This is a video seminar with Bruce Lipton. And the third bonus in this category is it's called Breaking Down to Build a Better Future. This is a video seminar with Lynn McTaggart. So that's the first bonus category. Again, there are 3 bonus categories here in this program. Then there's this whole early registration bonus category. It's called Expanding Your Mind and Feeding Your Soul. And there are 4 components to this bonus category: Infinitely Small and Infinitely Large, a video seminar with Barbara Marks Hubbard and Nassim Harriman. Then the Connected Universe, an audio seminar with Bruce Lipton, Nassim Harriman, Barbara Marks Hubbard, and myself. Then something called Walking Between the Linear and Quantum Worlds. This is a video workshop with Gregg Braden and myself. And then the 4th bonus in this category, The Exponential Power of Community. It's a video seminar with Bruce Lipton and myself. So that's the second bonus category. The third one is, we always have this, it's called an event-only bonus. So it's for you viewers that are here with us, and where you register by midnight tomorrow night, this bonus category kicks in. And these are all Gregg's bonuses not to be offered again. So these are only available if you offer between now, today at this time, and midnight tomorrow night. And the first is a bonus video workshop. It's called Business by Design, and it's Gregg and myself. The second one is called Science and Oneness, and this is also a video workshop with Gregg and myself. And the final one is really cool. It's a PDF, and it's a novel by Gregg Braden called Entanglement. So that's the third bonus. And these 3 are the event-only bonus, and you can see if you order by 1 hour, 13, or 1 day, 13 hours and 45 minutes. That's midnight Pacific tomorrow night. So that's why we're sending out links here tonight. As you watch this program, we're sending out a link so you can come back and spend quality time with it. In the morning, the video of the whole program so you can spend quality time with it. And just invite you to spend quality time before midnight tomorrow night, because this third bonus category is really neat, and it's for people that order by midnight Pacific tomorrow night. So now we're going to come down and scroll down to what the full program is. I mentioned at the top of the program, it's $297. Some people like a certificate of completion, so we offer that here as well for $347. And when you put it all together, what we've got in this program are 8 recorded video modules from Gregg Braden, 8 recorded video modules from Bruce Lipton, 8 recorded video modules from Lynn McTaggart, the 3 live mentoring programs, the 24 recorded MP3 audios, the 24 PDF module transcripts so you can hear and read these programs at your leisure, the exclusive membership in our private Facebook community, and then the bonus categories that we just went through here. I'm gonna, the 3 bonus categories that we just talked about. So there's a lot in this, over a year planning, and we're excited. Such an important topic, a cutting edge topic, and with the world-renowned scientists and researchers that are really we think, the best in the business when it comes to talking about technology, consciousness, and evolution, and embodying these higher capacities that are who we really are. It's what Gregg and I have been talking about here for this hour. Thank you again for joining us. And Gregg, any just a couple words of wisdom here as we're going to now go over. I'm going to come over live to answer your questions. So that's the next part of this webinar program, where I'm going to come in live to share with you here in just a moment. But Gregg, anything you want to share before?
Well, Steve, I just want to thank you and the entire team behind the scenes that a lot of our audience may not be aware of, but it takes a team to put something like this together. And we all have very full lives. So from the airplanes and the hotels and the calls on the run and the running through the airports, we've seen it all come together. It's the first time I've seen this. You've done a beautiful job. I'm excited. I'm going to go out and buy my program. I appreciate all the bonus material that you all have put together as well. And you've just done a really beautiful job. My prayer, at the end of every day, Steve, my question to myself is, what have I done to make this world a better place? What have I done to help the lives of my brothers and sisters, known and yet to be known, all over the world? And when I think about the effort put into a program like this, and I see what is evolving from that, it helps me to go to sleep feeling really good about my day. So thank you for making that possible. And thank everyone for watching today.
Yeah, thank you. And Gregg, I want to thank you again. You were the inspiration for this whole program going back a year in time. I still remember the conversation we had about where we said, oh my God, this is so incredibly important. There's so much that isn't understood here. We really need to create a masterclass around this, and then figuring out who these other world-renowned leaders might be, and then creating the whole program. So thank you. And thank you for your many contributions to an awakened world. And boy, those Templeton people, if they're smart, they're going to pick you this year, Gregg.
Thank you for that, Steve. I appreciate that. That's my hope and my dream.
Yeah, well, you're certainly contributing to an awakened world, to planetary awakening, and to flourishing at every level of society. So thank you for that, brother. Okay, and I'm coming over live here to spend quality time with you all. Thanks for being involved with us for the first part of the program, and looking forward now to chatting with you live.